Hi, it's Christy Lister, and I'm here with Beyond the First Response with a very special guest, someone I met a couple of years ago, a friend I consider now, Jennifer Anderson. How are you?
Thank you, Christy. I am wonderful. I am honored to be here with you today. Thank you.
We've talked about it for a while, and I just haven't, we had a little break here with Beyond the First Response, and we are back and ready to rock. And I think you're the perfect guest to start it off with because inspiration in your story and what you've done with it is enormous. So I know it started as blue line coaching, right?
Yes.
Back in the day, back in 2 years ago, because that's when I met you. It was 2 years ago. You were here in Illinois at Midwest Security and Police Expo.
Police Expo. Yes.
Yeah, and you were there just as an attendee, right? Not
I
just.
was. Well, no, I was because I was looking at, starting to bring coaching into the first responder world, specifically with police spouses, because that's as a police spouse of 15 years. That's what I knew. And I understood that, coaching was something that we could use as a modality to support our spouses within the law enforcement community who were seeing and are recognizing and understanding challenges that their spouses were experiencing on the job and then bringing them home. As much as they like to say that they leave work at work, that's not always true.
Right.
So I went to that Midwest Security and Police Expo to kind of feel the industry out, feel out where we were. And to be honest, finding you was such an important moment for me for a number of reasons.
Yeah, for me as well, because you were my support there, because that was the first time that I spoke to them that way. And I'm not knowing who's in the room, who's going to know me or know who they thought I was or who, and that's part of the story, right? We find out we're different people or we appear different to people. But that's why we talk about it. And to have you were upfront and it's like, it was fantastic. It's like we've known each other for a long time, but we have had very many similar experiences in understanding. So we were talking actually before I was watching your very first video of when it was blue line coaching and why you're doing what you're doing and your story with you and your husband and how the chief called and interviewed you, right? When he became, and I thought that's fantastic. But in reality, I'm not sure that they were really understanding why they were doing that. Because you said, no, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. I knew what I was getting myself into. And I still understand it, but it still can affect us in the same way, right? After that initial, he knew, he called and interviewed. Why don't you tell us a little bit what kind of happened down that road?
Sure. So Kevin's chief. So my husband Kevin, we were married shortly before he got on the force, and sure enough, the chief had called, right, like you said, to ask if I was fully supportive of his endeavor to join the law enforcement, and I, of course, yeah, absolutely, yes, of course, I definitely do, and but yeah, we never really fully understand until we're in it, but fast forward, he was on the job for 15 years. And through those, first like 5-year periods, right? The first 5 years, it was hair on fire, wives club, living on, the top of the world. Finally in a career he was so excited and passionate about. I was in a career that I was so excited and passionate about in education. So those first 5 years were just constantly on a high, built a house, had our first child, like things were so exciting. And then the second 5 years, it was like, okay, ready to settle into the groove, right? He was working at that point 11 to 7. So we were ships passing constantly. We'd have a couple of hours, here and there. And then he moved into the 3 to 11. And it was, again, ships passing and a couple hours here and there. But we made every hour a quality hour. We didn't have the quantity, but we made it up in quality. And that was what was really important. in those kind of middle years.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And then in those last 5 years of his career, that's when I started noticing significant changes in him, in his personality, in how he, his demeanor, how he carried himself. Um, he had been really, really thin, again, just going nonstop, overtime details, forced overtimes, he says that he only put in 15 years, but with the amount of doubles and overtimes, he really did put in his 30 when it
Oh,
when it
yeah.
came down to it. And so towards the end of those 15 years, I had been seeking help and support, looking for resources, because I saw we we can easily see, we see these things. We don't know what they are. We don't understand what they are, but we see them and we feel them. He had pulled away from me in a number of different ways. Yet one of the coolest pieces of this progression in him was that he epitomized the role of father, of dad, because the children represented the moment here now. So when he got home, he was the best dad. He was such a great dad to our girls, even though I represented something that was his past and future. He was able to focus in the now with the girls. So that was really, again, helpful in our ability to move through some of these challenges. But December of 2017, he suffered a mental health break, that led to a 6-week hospitalization, in January of 18. And of course, our world just crumbled,
Right.
just crumbled. Going from, working, all those hours, and feeling like I saw it happening, but didn't know how it was going to play out. And then all of a sudden, everything came to a crashing halt. I had to pick up pieces, in so many ways, financially, emotionally with the girls. He could FaceTime during his hospitalization, so that was helpful, for our girls to see him. We visited him a couple of times, during his hospitalization. But it was a screeching halt in terms of progress and growth, and in a lot of areas of our life. And reaching out to the chief, reaching out to spouses, knowing that he had suicidal ideations, knowing that he was on 7 different medications, knowing that he, was incapable of adulting, incapable of humaning, if that's a word. I had no resources. I had no culturally competent understanding people who knew what I was going through. So that's why I connected to coaching. Again, coaching is in the moment. It's about, where are you now, and what do you need, for supports, for network, for whatever in your life, to help you get through the next 24, 48, 72 week at a time. What's going on now in your life, and how can we help you move through what's going on now to create change, create satisfaction, create normalcy, create happiness despite the chaos that's around us. So that's when I realized how impactful coaching could be, because I was able to refocus on myself, on the mom, the wife, the woman that I needed to be to help us move through this really challenging
Well, and
time.
even the support system that they often don't realize they have when you are in a mental health crisis, you feel you are alone, and there's absolutely nobody out there other than the feeling of maybe the people that are out there are just kind of staring at you. Like you're in this bubble that nobody wants to talk to, nobody understands. You're put on administrative leave, and then your bubble gets even smaller because all of those people are now not allowed to talk to you.
And that was probably one of the most devastating pieces of all of this, is that, mid-December, 150 guys he would have taken a bullet for. He would have died for 150 of his brothers, 50,000 members of the city in which he was working in. Heartbeat.
Yeah.
But by early January, like days, seconds, right? No one was there for him. And since then, he still has had contact with only a very few of them. And that was devastating. So you're instantly
You're dropped
separated.
like, yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of that has to do with the way that policy is written, the administrative leave policy, but the also, and I really think it's 50-50 because in reality, your policy, it's not, if there was a criminal investigation, completely different story. But you're leaving this person who needs their family, in that sense,
Thank you.
the blue family the most, and you've just walked away from them. A lot of that is also, I think, they're struggling so much. They're seeing themselves in that moment, and that scares the living fuck out of them, right?
Thank you.
I
That's the
cannot
mirror.
possibly do that. Yeah.
All of them were like, no, 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 not us, not me. And even the wives, the spouses that I reached out to, I was like, guys, like this is happening. I don't know. And they're like, oh, not with my husband. So I don't know what you're talking. I don't know what you need. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, can't be there for you because they were so afraid to put a mirror up that they would see something in themselves or in their spouses that would lead to what happened with Kevin.
And I'm glad that you said that because you were in that moment and you were seeing things happen. And I talked to spouses that, or out on this other side of suicide. But
Thank you.
looking back, you talk to them like, oh no, it was not like that in our house. No, because you are really willing and fighting to keep everything. Yeah, you keep those blinders on because
Yes.
if you don't keep those blinders on, it's gonna hurt you. Well, it's gonna hurt
Well,
you regardless if we don't do anything. And that doesn't mean that you have to get to this side by any means. And that's the true blessing. When I met you, the true blessing is understanding that. Like, oh, she saw it, didn't understand it because we're not going to understand it. We're not meant to understand it, especially when we don't have the tools to do so.
right.
But you took that and opened up this beautiful, hey, it can be normal, guys. And your husband is very accepting of it.
Yes. Yes. He
Now, I
actually
don't know if
just
it would have been
graduated.
then. I
Well,
remember
thank
because
you.
I came out to Boston, well, New Hampshire with you and spoke at Healing the Trauma over at the New Hampshire Fire
Fire
Academy.
Academy. Yeah.
And that was so amazing. And I got to spend time with you and your family. One, I love your house, and maybe one time I'll see your yard when it's not dark. That's the goal
That would be great
because it looked really pretty in the
in the dark.
dark. Yeah. But I felt like home for me. And that's really difficult sometimes. So I appreciate that. And to
Thanks.
see, having that conversation with your husband and seeing that growth, I'm like, see, it's going to be okay. We're going to make that difference because he's still here. And now he's officially one of the first responder coaches.
Coaches. Yep.
So
Yep.
blue line coaching then took on a whole new realm, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden you're like, hey, it's actually, I've got my cup. It sits on my desk.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
that's huge.
Thank
It's
you.
and it's bringing all first responders together and as
Yes.
family. And that's the one thing. That's a big thing to me. Don't separate family, don't separate responders because at the end of the day, no matter what you put on, you're a family and your civilian family may be a civilian, but they're really not. And you're showing that every day. So
Yeah. No, it was a very quick transition from Blue
yeah,
Line. It was months. I was actually connected to the National Police Wives Association, and they were, talking about the Capitol Police spouses really struggling, again after the January 6th event. And so I started coaching them, and they were very much like, I want to learn how to coach. We're like, great. Went back to the guy who trained me to coach. He was like, let's put together a training course. I'm like, absolutely, let's do it. They were trained, they were out doing their thing coaching. And then sure enough, unfortunately, a member of the fire fire station nearby, one of my coaches in the Capitol had experienced a loss. And so they had reached out. Epiphany, yes, trauma is trauma is trauma. Like all of our first responders are experiencing it. And it was an instant. I was like, yeah, we need to find a flag with all of these colors on them because
Yeah.
all of them are representing. And I know some of those colors are definitely not as represented, our dispatch community, our corrections community. Like, again, we have lots of conversations about the military and our police and our fire, but what about our EMS population, those EMTs and ER doctors and nurses? So
Right.
to have an understanding that all of them are experiencing such trauma day in and day out, and knowing that there are so few resources, especially, let me use this phrase, proactive resources.
Absolutely. That is beautifully said because they're
We
not
just,
proactive.
thank you. It's always reactive and, reactive, this bad thing happens. Okay, well, then we'll deploy, the critical incident stress management team. This guy had a really rough call. Okay, I'll, as a peer support member, I'll reach out to them. But why aren't we starting to create conversations before they, our first responders experience trauma? So that way, when they experience the trauma, they're able to move through it in more positive ways,
Right.
than turning to negative coping skills. So actually something that I know I kind of transitioned here, real quickly into the first responder conversation, but absolutely, like our entire first responder community needs this proactive approach. And something I'm really excited that we've just added for our coaching partners is something called the stress and well-being assessment.
Oh, tell me about that. That sounds
I
like I
want to
need
talk
to
about
take
that
it.
actually real
Yeah,
quickly, if you're okay with that.
of course,
Um,
please.
because how do we quantify stress?
That's a really good you can't because stress is different for everybody.
So, in order for us to have really in-depth conversations right from the get-go, we're using something called the stress and well-being assessment. It's like a 15-minute questionnaire, and it gives you the really cool feedback about where you are in your life in terms of the levels of stress in your life. So, relationship, physical, work, financial, emotional stress. Where are you in your life in this moment? So, just a little snapshot. And then it also evaluates your levels of well being. And those levels of well being include things like resilience, right? Resilience is the buzzword, right now
Right.
across our entire first responder community. Everyone is talking about how do we build resilience, but also conversations about stress management, adaptability, emotional vitality. So what this assessment does is gives you a snapshot of how stressful your things are in your life, and then also what are you doing to combat that. And our coaching conversations have become so impactful using this type of assessment because we're getting right to what's going on now. How can we as coaches help you move through some of these challenges that you're facing and build
And giving handfuls of tools different because not one tool may be a multi-tool, right? In many ways. But at the same time, I always tell people, so this tool you have in your duty bag at home, you have in your duty bag at work, same tool, but you use it differently. So you got to understand that it might not be the right fit for that moment. And that's a hard thing to really figure out. And if you don't practice that or through coaching, you're not going to understand how to use the tool. You're going to forget how to use that tool when you need it the most.
And coaching is creating that toolbox, Christy. Like that's really what it is. We ask very powerful questions that lead people to understand where they are now and where they want to be. And then we create an action plan for them to get where they want to be. So we hold them accountable when you're talking about, those tools, those strategies. Absolutely. And I think that's also what differentiates us from, counseling or from therapy, right? You're going to those people because they have the answers.
Right.
In coaching, you have the answers inside of you. You are the expert in your own life. And it is the coach's responsibility to pull that from you in ways that will create the changes that you want to see in your own life.
And life will make you forget that you're the expert in your own life. It has a way of silencing you, right? Especially when no one wants to have those conversations about uncomfortable things like, feelings. who wants to talk about feelings? That's weak. That is the farthest thing from weak. And do you really want to talk about it? Because then you're going to realize that, oh, I portray that I feel this way. But really what's happening here is my my internal my counselor called it my internal moron. Like,
Yes.
it's my internal, it is. I like moron. My internal moron's like, hey, you think that? Let me show you what it really is. Because you allow it to.
Thank
And
you.
the more that you remind yourself, the more that you talk about it and not hold it in, it changes that mindset. It's scary. And I mean, scary,
Absolutely.
right?
And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely, we have to have clinicians and therapists and again, CISM teams and,
Yes.
peer support groups. Those are amazing resources. And you're absolutely right when you talk about modalities, how important it is to have a number of modalities available to everyone in our communities. Coaching is a really great tool because I feel so many of us are saying, no, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm good. Now, how you doing? I'm good. No, I'm good. And we also have this phrase. I know one of our one of our really good friends, Tracy Eldridge, right? It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there, right?
Yep.
So what are we doing to like acknowledge the fact that we're not okay, number one? Or if we are saying I'm good, great. Let's start some coaching conversations about what's making you good in this moment. What are you using right now in terms of strategies and tools that you're good now? So when something bad does happen, you can tap into them in ways to continue to move through those things in healthy ways.
Right. And doing that, you're helping yourself, but then you're also helping others see that that change is possible. And it doesn't fully change you. That stuff like PTSD does not go away.
Thank you.
There will always be those triggers. And I'm very open with I have been diagnosed and then I pretend like I'm not diagnosed. I'm like, no. And then my counselor's like, so you know. I'm like, shh, I
It's
know.
there.
It's there. But because there'll be triggers that will come up that I thought I understood them all. And that's just part of life. Things in life happen. But I'm better off now because I have those tools to say, okay, I feel this or I see it. Now I just got to be strong enough to call myself out on it
Yes.
and work with that.
Acknowledge it. Work
And
through it.
it's possible.
Yes.
And it helps our kids and first responders. And I think that's the important thing what we've taught our kids. And I know that you just need to know we love you and that we're there for you. And that's all you need to know. I now know those words are you good? Cool. Have a good day.
Yep.
Because I don't want
Yep.
to hear how I've already broken you without knowing that I've broken you.
Yep.
And we have to, if giving our kids that now, earlier, especially in today's world,
Yes.
they need that more than anything.
Yes. And to be able to, again, create space. I think that's another piece that's very important that we're creating space for first responders and their spouses, guys, right? And our spouses
Yes.
to have a reflective moment. We talk about self care all the time, right? Coaching is self care. Coaching is taking a moment to process information that you are receiving in ways that will help you to evaluate your next steps in life, to help you breathe easily, right? We always have conversations about the things that we know that we need to do, we just aren't doing them.
Isn't it easier said than done? But the best changes in life are when we finally grab it and just do it. You know, procrastination, like fertilizing the grass, procrastination kills the grass, right? And weeds will grow. Like I'm really good at dandelions. I got the most beautiful dandelion yard you will ever see. But that's procrastination. And you think it's a beautiful thing, but it's killing the roots of who you are and who your family is.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we're taught often that our us being silent is supportive. Silently stand there. I'm here to tell you being silent isn't supporting anything. Being proactive and say, hey, it looks like you're struggling, or hey, I feel like that something's wrong because of the look you just gave me, or because you aren't talking, or you're slump, whatever that is.
Yes.
We have to speak up and be
Yes.
honest, because we're recognizing it. We just
Yes.
don't know how to talk about it.
And I feel very strongly, with what you said, that I hadn't communicated to him about my concerns, if I hadn't been saying things like, I fully admit I'd gone to therapy when he was about 12, 13 years in, because I was seeing these changes and I didn't like them. And
Yeah.
so I wanted him to come with me. No, 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 no. Like, all right, that's fine. Um, you know, and so I opened some conversation. Listen, like, I'm noticing these things within, our marriage, within our lives, within you, that aren't sitting well with me right now. Let's have conversation. And to be honest, I think because of those conversations, it allowed him the space to, in December of 17, have the breakdown, have the meltdown. Because if I hadn't created this space, then he would have constantly been continuing trying to suck it up. Nope, I can't let her see that. Nope, I can't let her, acknowledge what I'm going through. So to create the space for him to be able to safely cry on the couch for 3 days.
Yeah.
3 days. That saved his life.
Yeah. Oh, I believe so. 100%. 2 weeks before Ken died, I happened to call him, and he was crying on the phone. I'm so sorry, Christy. It's all my fault. I'm so sorry, Christy. It's all my fault. And looking back, hindsight, I can't go back.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like, why couldn't he have done that 20 years before? Why couldn't he have chosen to say, I don't feel anything right now, and that scares the hell out of me? Instead, not only society, but first responder society has taught both sides of the badge, both
Yep.
sides of the headset. Don't talk about it. Suck it up, wipe it off, move on, and stomp on it till you don't feel anymore. And
Yep.
changing that now, I always tell them, changing it now, it starts at the top. Because the bottom, these younger kids coming in, they're doing it regardless. Now you're looking at them like they're weak or weaker. Let me tell you. Okay, some of them might be, but I'm just saying these, because they're coming out, they're not having any life experience. They're allowed to not have life experience now. But at the end of the day, they're able to use their voice. And using their voice, it's a job. They don't care. They could just job hop if they want to, in their minds. That's what they're doing. That's what
Right.
that age is doing. They're not going to tolerate that anymore.
Thank you. And that's, again, part of the culture change that FRC is trying to establish within departments. So thank you for bringing that up, because, top down, bottom up, left and right, we have to create a bit of a culture shift here in the creation of the space to allow coaching in, to allow resources in, like, again, different modalities of meditation or breath work or whatever that might look like. And FRC has been connecting with departments and organizations across the country to bring coaching directly to their departments, to their membership. We've got a department who is now, using the NFPA standards, requiring their department to do the stress and well-being assessment and have a 30-minute coaching session.
Good.
For each of their members. Like, why have we continued to say our physical health is so incredibly important, and they are required, they're required to maintain certain physical expectations and standards? Why are we not holding our mental health to the same, if not more rigorous standards? And so using and referencing the NFPA standards in fire departments, in firefighting, conversations within police departments about looking at their operating procedures. Are you just checkboxing your mental health and wellness? Yeah, I showed them a 10 slide PowerPoint on PTSD. They sign off on it. Congratulations, you've now checked that box. Or are we really providing the tools that our members need and our communities need within our first responder world that are going to maintain their ability to do the job well, right? Retain our numbers. You just mentioned a lot of the younger members of these departments are job hopping. They are not going to stay in a place that they don't feel supported and understood, right? So retention rates, longevity in the career, transitions within careers. How often is it, shift changes are constantly happening within our first responder community? How are you navigating shift changes? All of these pieces are vital to our departments. And so to bring a coaching program into a department from the top down saying, listen, we value and confidentiality. Yeah. So I want to throw this out real quick. All of our FRC coaches are first responders or spouses of first responders. That's it. We purposefully have created an amazing network of over 45 coaches now across the country who are in this life. We get it. We know what we're going through.
Do you hear that real quick? 45. 2 years ago in 20, 2.5 years ago in 20, it was 1. So that shows speaking up and having that change, what it does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You
can continue. I just had to point that. I'm like, I can't have that wait until the end. I got
45. I mean, yeah. FRC is just absolutely, people around the country are recognizing how important coaching can be as a modality to improve the overall life satisfaction of our entire first responder community. We know the numbers, guys. Like,
we don't really know the numbers. That's the sad thing.
Fair enough. No, Christy, you're absolutely right. We know the numbers that are reported.
That. Right. And we know that there's so many more that are choosing not to report for whatever reason, department wise, personally, because, it was personal. At the end of the day, it's one person, 3 people in one. You think you're 3 people in one. Your work person, your home person, but the one that takes the biggest hit, that root, that's grounded you. And so it's really one person. Mm-hmm. And you gotta take care of that one. In the coaching that you do in, the departments that are bringing it in, is it just 1 half hour? So they're providing the 1 half hour training. Is there do they want this quarterly? Are they looking at it in that concept? Hey, we did this evaluation here. Now, quarterly, maybe a coaching session, and then maybe reevaluate that assessment if you feel that is. And is it on site or off site that you're doing this?
Great questions. So number 1, the stress and well-being assessment is recommended to be taken every 6 months. Good. You can take them every 3 months if you'd like to, because it's literally just an instantaneous snapshot of where you are in this moment when you're taking it. And so departments right now, as they're coming on board, using the assessment and providing the 30-minute session is just the beginning. Any above and beyond, absolutely, we can continue to support quarterly if they want to do, packages. We offer packages of 25 units of 30-minute coaching sessions. And so whatever it fits best within their department is what we would recommend. But you're absolutely right. Continuing this conversation, it's not just a one and done. So if we can go back to the stress and well-being assessment 6 months after you've had a weekly coaching session or bi-weekly coaching session, you will see differences in that stress and well-being assessment that will show coaching is supporting you in ways that are building you toward a better future, better satisfaction, overall satisfaction in your life.
Now, out of curiosity, I know currently coaching is not covered by insurance.
Thank you.
Can it be picked up by, and I guess EAP is somewhat of an insurance. We all know, I am amazed at how many, when I go and I talk to departments, how many don't know they have an EAP, first of all. And that saddens me that they go over it that quick. I also am not a huge fan of EAP. However, I did learn a lot. We did have a podcast a few months ago from somebody that is in charge of EAP. So I did learn a lot, and I think it's important to vet out people on there. But are you able, or have you looked into even having the opportunity to join an EAP? Because that would bring them the opportunity to do this quarterly, because they're getting these 3 free ones. You know, the officers, the dispatchers are all getting these free ones, and they're getting that help.
Yes. So a couple of pieces to that. Number one, going back to the confidentiality piece, right? We only report back to the departments the number of sessions held per week.
That's good.
That's it. We do not take notes during our sessions. We do not keep track. We do not record. There is zero information other than how many sessions are being held each week reported back to the administration of those departments. So in terms of confidentiality, that's it, done. And because of that, we haven't gone into the insurance pieces just yet. Obviously, it's a process, and yes, it's one that we have considered and are looking into. Having the insurance be able to support continuation of coaching services beyond what the department is offering would be phenomenal. Absolutely. Right. Things that we are considering. In terms of the EAP piece, I absolutely recognize their value. I see their value for sure. And having a vetted EAP program, I think, is priceless.
Right.
However, oftentimes our EAP programs are not being utilized because of the lack of cultural competency that they have within our first responder community. So not only is there a lack of awareness that they exist, but then they also are hesitant about, will it get back to my department? Number one, will they even understand what I'm going through? How will they connect? Will I spend the first, month, 2 months explaining what I do before I even get into some of the challenges that I'm facing with what I do? Those are really some of the broad strokes of what I understand about EAP programs.
Right.
And a small little caveat to that, I'd like to share real quickly with you. I actually had a full circle moment, and I haven't shared this publicly yet. A member of the department in which my husband retired from, he was medically retired in November of 2019, reached out to me a few weeks ago on behalf of a member of their staff, and their department purchased coaching services.
That's huge.
For a member of their department.
Yeah, that is definitely full circle. They see the value. They see that it saves lives, and that it makes a difference.
So I wanted to share that with you because it was
congratulations.
A circle moment for us.
That's when you know what you're doing, your passion and what you're doing. That's your why.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's huge. That's so exciting for you. And I look forward to hearing those stories more often and hearing the acceptance of it. However you want to look at it. I was thinking, as you're talking coaching, I'm like, it's like, and how we work physically, to keep that up, and not mentally. It's cross training. You have to cross train, right?
Yes.
It totally hit me. I'm like, oh God, I think I need to cross train. It is. It's cross training. You don't change something without doing a different movement.
Yes.
You don't get off that hamster wheel and rewire your brain without jumping off and trying to go this route to rebuild the part that trauma has taken away from you.
Thank you. And that's exactly what we are doing through coaching. We are creating space for those conversations to happen in ways that provide you the ownership to make decisions for yourself because you are the expert in your own life. You have the answers inside of you as to where you need to go, the things that you need to do to get where you want to be. And then we've got trauma and stress and life and kids and career and this and that and everything else around us that's influencing and putting up blocks to prevent us from identifying and achieving and reaching. I mean,
Yeah.
we're February 22nd, 21st here, and we're already a month and a half in. How many of those New Year's resolutions are already gone?
I stopped making them because I'm going to forget anyway.
Right? How many times have we said, well, it's a Monday. Let's go. Let's tackle this. Let's do it. How many people say, I want a Wednesday? You know what? I'm going to start a new habit on a Wednesday. What? That's crazy. Crazy talk.
Yeah.
Well, coaching is that, like you just said, the cross training piece, that modality that can help bring in these changes in positive ways.
And in short stints, it takes, repetitiveness, but you do a little bit at a time. It's not going to happen overnight because you did not self-destruct internally overnight. Some of us are born with that trait of worrying or OCDs or not feeling good enough. Some of us don't realize it's happening until we look back and understand it. And one of the biggest things this year that I've been working on, I've forgiven so many things in my life, but you got to forgive yourself. That is the most difficult thing to even accomplish, but it came out of my mouth one day. I'm like, I haven't forgiven myself. And I don't know why I haven't forgiven myself. Other than that internal moron is the one that's, preventing me from doing that. Right. It plays, it gets back up. It's like a tapeworm. It gets back up into your head like, oh, look, you're doing good. Squirrel. Here, I'm going to dig a new hole right where you were. Now you got to start over again. But it doesn't have to be. Forgiving yourself is as important than forgiving others, because the only person is you that can make that.
The only person that you need to be accountable for is the one in the mirror, is the one that you wake up to every day. I live my life day in and day out so proud of the network that I've been able to create, the people who have come together. I am not the FRC is not just me. FRC is 3 executive team, board members, 9 administrative board members. We've got, again, the 45 plus coaches. Like, there's zero way that I couldn't have built what FRC is now and will continue to be in the future without having the amazing people around me. But if it wasn't for the decision that I made 2 years ago to embark on this,
right,
it wouldn't be here.
Leadership. It started with leadership. You saw the vision, the need, and the want to protect your family and understand what your family's been through, even though in that moment you still didn't understand it, I'm sure. Still to this day. Yeah, I was going to say, still to this day, you look back like, okay, looking back is okay because you're looking how far you've gone. But your leadership and the one passion was to not have somebody else deal with this, not to watch somebody else's loved ones suffer and your family suffer. Because again, it's all a unit. That department suffered, he suffered, your family suffered. And you're showing that it doesn't have to be. And you're keeping it here instead of, well, I remember when they were alive, or I remember when they were still in my life and I don't know where they are now. Things like that. Because it isn't just death. You're grieving, you grieve somebody in that moment. Those years that you were seeing change, you're grieving.
I was.
You're grieving something you didn't understand because it's not what you thought where you thought you would be.
Yes. I had to grieve the loss of my husband, of the marriage that I thought we were going to have. Absolutely, Christy. And I would just want to say real briefly too that like to have someone who, yes, we've been, friends for a few years here and we've had great conversations and we've spoken at one of the FRC events and I've heard you speak a number of times, but to like hear you articulate my heart, my passion, FRC's mission and values and goals, like thank you for articulating that in such an amazing way. Because it's one thing for me to know it and feel it in FRC to be alive and feeling it. It's another for someone who's not necessarily a member of FRC to be able to hear it and feel it and
Well,
understand it. So
keep wearing it on your sleeve. That's the badge of honor you get to wear because it's changing lives.
thank you.
And it's growing. 2 years ago, it was one person. And then all of a sudden, you're 45 and going more.
Oh, yeah. We have a coach certification class starting every month this year.
That's huge. And
Mhm.
congratulations to Kevin for becoming a coach.
I'm so proud of him.
And your dog, will he be coming along? What's the dog's name?
Bentley.
Bentley. He needs his own coaching badge.
I agree.
Right?
I know. No, it's actually, and I don't know if, again, through our conversation, 45 coaches around the country are coaching using our computers, using our ability, Teams and Zoom to have these conversations. So it's,
Right.
You're mentioning, you're bringing Bentley along. Yeah, of course, we're going to bring Bentley along to the places that we are visiting. We just went to a couple departments up in New Hampshire, but so boots on the ground are important.
Yeah.
But this work is something that is done everywhere at any time, at any moment.
That's the one thing the last couple of years have given us, that ability to see we can communicate and still feel it without having to have boots on the ground. However, boots on the ground is extremely important at the same time because everybody communicates differently. Everybody feels differently. We can feel a connection here where somebody else has to have that physicalness in front of them.
Mhm.
So,
which is why having 45 coaches around the country who can go to those stations and have conversations with people in their own communities and have those I love traveling. I've been already across the country, having conversations in departments, visiting them and doing informal coaching sessions within the departments as I'm hanging out at a firehouse dinner, in New Jersey that I went to, and it was amazing.
That's
absolutely
cool.
Amazing.
I didn't travel a lot before. When I nannied, I did. And then when I started having kids, I didn't. So last year was like the first time I got to travel a little bit more than I normally do. And I got lost on the way back to the airport. I'm not a good city driver. I'm like, is that the road? Is that the road? Right? They all look the same and they're all right next to each other. I'm like, shit, I think I took the wrong road. Yep, back on the highway.
Whoopsie.
This is why I left so early. You all looked at me weird. This is why I leave early.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It was hysterical.
No, I absolutely, GPS is life. Yeah, no, I love traveling. I love going to places. And I think there's again, when we talk about room for expansion, having conversations with some of our directors of business development, we have a Midwest, a West Coast, and an East Coast director of business development, and having conversations with them about going into departments and traveling. And again, those boots on the ground is so incredibly important. And we're looking at, having a conference at some point in Vegas, maybe early next year. We're looking at an FRC in Vegas conference. So that's going to be exciting. And again, other partnerships with the New Hampshire Fire Academy. And we will be at FDIC again this year. We've just
and I do love that New Hampshire Academy has done that. I hope that one day all of the academies do this, because the importance is bringing awareness, not just a half a day, not just an hour out of it, that they bring a 8 to 16 to a whole week of the academy. They're changing academies here, at least police academies. I was just told the other day that they're going, I think it's like they're only doing 3 academies a year now, 14
Okay.
to 16 weeks. And I'm like, well, I'd like to see that. Are they bringing in mental, well-being now? Are they bringing in something like this? And now they've got plenty of time to do a week or two on that.
Yes, they do.
And they
As they
should.
should.
Yeah.
As they should.
Yes.
And having conversations about what coaching can look like, from the get-go. Again, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. Well, that's great, you're good. Let's talk about why you're good right now. Let's talk about why you're in a great place right now.
What does good look like?
What does that look like for you? Because there's gonna be a moment that you're not.
I never thought about that. I mean, yes, I thought about what you just said, that there's going to be a moment you're not. But when people are saying, I'm good, I need to remind myself to say, well, what does that look like? Because good is different for me, right? I'm good that I was able to buckle my favorite pants today.
That's a
win. A total win. But what does, because even then, one little positive, that's a good.
Yeah. Celebrate the enough is something that I've been pondering a lot.
Yeah.
The
God, we're on to something now. That I didn't hit my head on the door looking back, talking. You have no idea how many times I walk into my door when I go into the office and I'm talking to somebody. I'm like, oops, there it goes again. Because I'm not paying attention. I'm paying attention to the conversation, not where I'm walking.
Where my head was.
Yeah. There's my head. I thought I lost it. It's back.
Oh my gosh.
But it's the little things.
Celebrate the enough. Celebrate the little things that are truly what helps us connect to ourselves, connect to our own humanity, connect to our own growth, our own progress.
Yes. And be quirky. Quirkiness is fun. If you can't laugh at yourself for your quirkiness, you can't laugh at anybody. And
so true.
Yeah.
So true.
I enjoy it because life is too stressful. Life doesn't have to be so stressful, but life has become so stressful that we forget to laugh at ourselves.
Amen. Yep. Absolutely.
And it will teach our children to laugh at themselves.
And in one of those moments, this is what I've been holding on to the whole time. So if you've been seeing me,
you're a unicorn. I have nothing.
This is my stress ball.
I have nothing. You know what? All I have, because I'm redoing the room. I don't know if you can tell. Probably not. This rock. It looks like a dragonfly on it. Right? Isn't that cool? So when Ken died, there were hundreds of dragonflies in my backyard. I had not seen one before. I mean, periodically you'd see one flying through, but they were there for months. And now I find different every time I go on a walk, because that's where I ground myself. I find white dragonflies. Who knew? I didn't know. I'm like, how do I I'm an insect person. How do I keep finding new ones? I'm in the wrong line of work. But yeah, little treasures.
Yes.
Horny treasures.
Dragonflies are very important to me as well.
I appreciate that you came into my life, and I appreciate the amount of passion and work that you have done just in these couple of years, and to watch it happen when in New Hampshire. I mean, I already knew it was happening, but to see it full force and the conversations that were had and the connections that were had was tremendous. And I look forward to seeing that grow and come out our way and into the departments as a normal everyday thing.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Within 5 years, I want to coach in every major department across the country.
That's a goal that you're going to hit.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So much like First Help started as Blue Line or Blue Help, you started as Blue Line, and we've seen the need. So first responders, families, they're all one and the same. And you're living next to one, you're living with one, or you're living in honor of a past one. But have a voice for them and have a voice for yourself to recognize if it feels off, you got this. And the tools that we give, take them, hold on to them because you're going to need them one day. And you're fooling yourself if you think you're not gonna. So my question for people to think about as we end today is, what does good mean to you?
Love it.
So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thank you. We are excited to be able to start our day with Badge Brew Coffee. Hey Robin, did you know that Badge Brew has a new charitable badge collab roast?
Hey Christy, I thought I heard that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's called First Response Roast with a spicy, smooth, medium roast with flavor notes of spice cake and citrus undertone.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And if that doesn't tempt our audience, a portion of the proceeds go to First Help. Oh, and don't forget, they're first responder family owned. Whether you're on day shift, night shift, or the shift of raising your family, Badge Brew has your coffee ready and waiting.
So let me ask you, what's your badge of honor? Find out by going to badgebrewcoffee.com and order yours. If you want the First Response Roast, click on Charitable Badge Collab. I know I am.